Hey, this is Mary. Welcome to Voices of Vets, a podcast where we meet real veterans and hear their stories. All right, well, thanks for being here with us today, Kim. I really appreciate it. And we're with the Voices of Vets, where we like to hear stories from our military. And I'm going to start off with a really simple question. Kim, did you serve?
Yes, I was privileged to serve from 1989 until 1992.
Okay. What branch did you serve in?
The U.S. Army.
Nice. Can you tell me why you chose that branch?
I can, because I was naive and I was colorblind. And the recruiter didn't explain very well, or they basically wanted to fill a spot.
Okay.
So he gave me a little spiel on the job. It was communications, but it was actually using Vietnam era communication equipment, which was way outdated. It was designed that you jump out of an airplane with it. It didn't carry over into civilian world whatsoever, but he told me like it did. And he was like, hey, you do this, you go back home, AT&T, you write your own ticket, you'll be in communications.
Oh.
And I guess they need to fill a spot. Also, so since I was colorblind, I had a pretty
how
good...
did that play in, being colorblind?
So it disqualified me from a lot of jobs. They was like, well, color coordination blindness, some medical stuff I wanted to do. I had a pretty good ASVAB score. So when I went, he said, well, you're colorblind, so you're disqualified from this. And then I talked with the Navy recruiter, and he talked about a nuclear engineering program, but it was on a naval submarine, so that wasn't going to be a very good fit from a young guy from Eastern North Carolina. So for me, it didn't.
Right.
Which would probably been a much better choice, but
I mean, things like we kind of feel like things happen the way they happen, for the best, right? Okay. And so tell me again how long you served?
I served for 3 years, 327 Signal Battalion, Airborne Unit out of Fort Bragg, and I did the first Gulf War Operation Desert Storm, Desert Shield deployment.
Okay. Do you come from a military family?
No, not really. I had a uncle who was military, and then maybe some great uncles. And my brother, he was military. He was younger than me, but he actually enlisted before I did. What was a driving factor for me for the military? I had messed up pretty much everything back home, relationship-wise, job-wise, vehicle-wise. I didn't have anything going. So I was going to join the military. It's going to be my fresh start, my new break, And then I had some alcohol challenges. But so I was going to join the military, fresh start, new break. Unfortunately, I took myself with me.
I understand that.
And the same challenges that I had back then, I took with me. And
everywhere you go, there you are.
Right. And unfortunately, everywhere you go, people are different, but they're the same. And so I gravitated towards some knuckleheads. So pretty much the same stuff that I was doing prior to that, I was doing again. And so I was looking, I was actually searching for what I really needed, which was Jesus Christ. And I was trying to find it through a job or different location or whatever, and it never panned out because I would take myself and unregenerate it, and I'll be doing the same crazy stuff before very long.
Okay. So your primary job after boot camp, or hold on, tell me about boot camp.
So when I joined, I was, I think, maybe 23, and that was the first part of '89. And I was living over in Halifax County, and the tornadoes came through, and we were living in a mobile home, destroyed that. So when I say all of my options were out, my options were out. So, but boot camp, being there at 23, there was younger guys there that were like 17, 18. They were just leaving home and they may have came from the suburbs with a picket fence. But I came from like the rough edges. So boot camp really, I'm like, and they were playing mind games somewhat. I mean, it was serious, but it's like look, I came from the farm. I messed up everything I got and did. This isn't so bad. I don't know what they whining about.
That is so
You know,
great.
it's like to them it was a bad situation,
Uh-huh.
but I guess it depends on what situation you came out of, how bad it was. To me, it was like, hey, 3 meals. We'd go do our little exercise.
Yeah.
We'd clown around a little bit,
Right.
and some people were taking it so serious. I mean, we had one guy, I think from upstate New York. He was a little chubby guy,
Mm.
and he couldn't.
Handle the
He could.
physical aspect.
He couldn't. He
Yeah.
couldn't do one push up.
Oh.
And the drill sergeant he would be in there crying because he couldn't do stuff, and they were messing with him, and
That's rough.
yeah, but through the process, he improved, and he was able to accomplish and get through
Nice.
basic and do his physical part.
Very good.
Yeah, but for him, it
He
was
had a different road.
right. His environment, it was terrible because I think his mom would even call, and he would get a phone call, and normally we wouldn't get no one else, but he had been like catered to all his life, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna die," and,
Oh,
and the drill
that's
sergeant
rough.
would, and but
I
he
kind of
got through
wonder.
it.
Yeah, I kind of wonder what some of this generation right now, how they would, if they had been drafted or if they were in that situation.
I don't think the current military is like what we had.
Yeah,
And
I don't think our nation's physical fitness level
right,
is where
I don't.
we were in the
More so, I
80s.
don't think the mental fitness level.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
the
real.
sense of commitment and stuff. I don't think is there.
So your primary job after boot camp training, what was your job?
So I was a 31 Charlie single channel communication specialist, airborne, and what we did, they gave us. We had like these vet rigs vehicles that we would actually fly over the drop zone and drop this out with all our equipment, and then we would come over and parachute down to our equipment. And then we have like a little small unit that you could carry between your legs. So, but it was communications, but the equipment was way outdated when we got there. And in the Army, you train for an MOS or a job,
Mm-hmm.
but you're assigned as needed.
Okay.
So I did a lot of guard duty, attached to a lot of military MP units and stuff like that.
Wow.
So
All right. Um, what job was did you like the best out of everything since you cross trained so much and
right,
served
so I enjoyed pretty much any of it as long as I wasn't in the field. That's the bad. So probably one of the assignments I liked best. I got assigned to. There was a joint venture between the Army, Navy, and Air Force, and so I went to Puerto Rico, to
Nice.
Roosevelt Naval Base, and when I got there, I was like, I signed up for the wrong branch because the Navy, they had all this fresh fruit and like a super clean galley. We called ours a mess hall. I think they called theirs a galley or something. But they had like a nice eating facilities, nice fresh food and fresh fruit, and where sometimes we would have a tent and a mess hall, so it was totally different. They had nice, comfortable environments, and on that assignment, they were like the guys from the Air Force, and they were all like nice, clean barracks. They were. I met quite a few AWAC pilots, the guys that fly the planes, reconnaissance planes, and gather information and stuff. So their environment was totally different from the Army environment, you know. But I did. So a piece of advice: the military is a great opportunity. It's overlooked by many people if you choose it for just a short term of service or a career. But if you decide to go, take time and research what you're gonna be, what you're signing up for, and if possible, talk to someone who's in that field who's done that, so that you have a clear understanding versus what a recruiter may give to you.
I've heard that before. That's good advice. Um, so the majority of the time in service, you were not in Puerto Rico. You
Right. So I only did 3 years. So the majority was basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and then airborne school at Fort Benning, South Carolina, and I think Signal Corps Communications at Fort Gordon, South Carolina, Georgia. But it was mostly in the southeast, and then I got deployed to Operation Desert Storm, Desert Shield, and so I was assigned to Fort Bragg, and I spent a little time at Fort Bragg. But the deployment to Saudi Arabia, after the school, it pretty much ate up my 3-year term.
Oh, okay. Um, and that was, you weren't in any other countries other than in Saudi Arabia.
Saudi primarily, except just flying through. I think we may have stopped over in Italy and just refuel, but that was pretty much it.
And tell me, Kim, what rank were you most proud to have earned and why?
So I was an E4 specialist, but to me, the rank thing really doesn't matter a lot, because the fact that people step up to serve and put up the uniform, I value that above the rank. And I understand you got to have a structure and all that, right? But the fact that someone steps out and serve regardless of their rank, because everyone comes there with different talents, different abilities, different commitment levels. But the biggest one, I think, is you putting on that uniform to serve your country, to take up your life, everything you got, you put it in a bag, and that's it. That's what you got. And you, at the U.S. government's discretion, you're going to serve wherever and whenever they want you to serve.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's that yes on the table.
yeah, it's like when you sign up, it's like for all the above.
That's right. Did you receive any medals or citations or anything like that?
So like a U.S. paratrooper badge in
Cool.
Southeast Asia for serving in a conflict area, and sharpshooter, the basic badges, but nothing that stands out. No Purple Heart, anything like that.
Well, that sounds amazing, though.
Right.
Yeah. Tell me, Kim, about some of the special people you met.
So one of the people that stood out to me, I met a few Christians in there. And I wasn't a Christian at the time. But what they said and did was impactful, and I remembered it. There was a guy by the name of Sergeant Barton, and he would say, I was in Saudi Arabia, and, the Scud missiles were flying. So I was reading my little Bible and stuff. And he said, Silver, he said, as soon as you get your feet back on the ground, you're going to be doing the same thing. And he was right. He was reading me like a book. But he was probably praying for me and seeing the need in my life.
So you had some foxhole prayers and
Right,
and
yes.
all that going on.
You get me through this.
But yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I think I was prayed into to the family of God.
Right,
Yeah.
so.
Anybody else?
And and then we had the routine knuckleheads that I gravitated towards. I was in Saudi Arabia, and over there, we were near an Air Force base. So that was a pretty good assignment and facilities because it was near Air Force base. And we stayed in a compound, and there were most of the Saudis that didn't work, but they would bring in like the Filipinos and Palestinian, different people to do the domestic work, the cooking and stuff like that. And in the middle of that, there was a guy named Sergeant, I won't mention his name. Saudi Arabia was a dry country, and and when you have issues and desire stuff, you usually find it.
Oh yeah.
So there was a sergeant that would go and he would do the alcohol runs for us.
Oh, okay.
And the Filipinos, they would make it was something equivalent to like a corn liquor, but they made it out of pineapple juice.
Oh
And
man.
he would go around with his rucksack. He would put it on his back. He would go out and make contact with them, and he'll come back and redistribute it to the soldiers.
Okay. What was the best and or the worst military food you were served?
Probably the best when I was on the naval base, because it was like fresh. It wasn't like military food. It wasn't mess hall. It was totally different.
In Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico,
Yeah.
yes, and fresh food and everything. And the worst, I didn't really. even the MREs, I enjoyed those as long as they had a little bit of bottles of Tabasco sauce.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't really care about the
That
food. I
fixed
mean,
everything.
yeah, I mean, it wasn't like I came out of a really spoiled environment, so
Yeah.
I was much more appreciative.
Can you share any memorable experiences or stories from your time in the military?
Okay, probably. So when I joined, my first airplane ride was, I think, from Raleigh to maybe Charlotte. It was like on a little crop duster, so it was real turbulent. And then I think we got on like maybe a larger plane from there and flew to Fort Jackson or something. But that was my first flight, and so my second flight it was
Were you
probably
scared?
it was just interesting. I was probably too numb or to be scared. It was just
Shocked.
interesting. And
Okay.
but my second flight was on a C-130, and that was when we actually jumped out of the airplane, and that
Wow.
was like
So the second time you
time
were on
I
an
flew.
airplane,
Right, the door, and I mean it's like
the door went
it's
open and you
the,
jumped
the
out.
door goes open and you ride
Oh.
around for maybe an hour and get your night vision adjusted, your eyes adjusted, and you kind of
So
map
you
the
jumped
earth.
out at night
Right,
the
and
second time you were on an airplane.
second time, and like,
Oh my gosh.
well, it may have been the daytime. I'm not sure. It may have been daytime, but the second time I rode, it was like it was probably day. The door comes open and everything. The C-130 is like real. It's like hardware type stuff. It's like with cables and
Uh-huh.
dripping water in there, and it's like the door's coming open, and then you're looking out. And you be like, what am I doing? What?
Uh-huh.
But it's amazing. And I can remember there was a little girl, and she probably shouldn't have been doing what she was doing, but she was tiny.
Serving with you?
Yeah, and I it's just because of physical
You mean she just was
limitation.
petite?
She was petite, and she had on all this stuff.
So she was a grown woman.
She was
petite.
a small grown woman, and she had like her rucksack and all that, her weapon, the parachute, and physically she was already overloaded. And I remember her going up to the door, and she started crying.
Oh.
Oh. And the jump master, so you have a set amount of time to get the people out of the plane,
Right.
or you get
Or
back
you'll
into
be
a wooded
off.
area. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
off. And she approached the door. She was like crying, and the jump master and safely did it. He sort of got behind her and
And pushed her out.
well, he kicked her out with an uplift safely and got her out of there. But if not,
Well, you'd have had to push me out too.
right?
Oh
And,
my
and I was
God.
like, oh, I felt so sorry
Oh
for her.
man.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's funny. That like the second time you were on a plane.
Second time the door was coming open, jumping out of it, and it looks totally different when you open it.
I guess so. Did you ever get to where you really liked jumping out of planes?
I enjoyed it from the first time. I enjoyed it. It was
Okay.
exciting, but the preparations prior to it, and it
That's
just
exhaustive,
it
right?
does. You'll go out and sit on like the tar ramp and stuff. It takes a long time preparation
Because you
for
got to
it.
make sure everything
Right, make
is
sure
right.
that a lot of times, maybe the first few jumps were day, but the majority of them nighttime. They're designed to get you out of the plane without being recognized. So it's low and it's quick, you know. But the proceed before waiting till you actually jump it takes a long time.
What about are any funny stories? It's like a story that could only happen in the military.
Well, sort of, kinda. So I was in. I don't know if maybe in Saudi Arabia, and this young private, he had taped his flashlight onto his rifle, and he thought he had come up with a great idea. You know, he was like, "Hey, Sarge, see this? I can see this." And he was like, "What are you doing?" And the Sarge said, "Look, you're the biggest target out here. Get that off of your rifle, man. What are you doing?"
So it wasn't in the barracks. It was when he was out.
Out,
Oh,
yes, we were
no.
out in a live
Oh,
situation, and he thought he had come up with a great idea. And then Sarge was like, "Dude, you're the biggest target out here. That is do not do that." You know?
Everything worked out okay.
It did, yeah. He took it off, but he he had thought he was so proud of the idea that he
Bless.
had made himself the biggest target
He was
around.
not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Oh my goodness. So, Kim, how did your military experience, how did it affect your life today?
I think in a way uh, it gives you a much better appreciation for this country and the freedoms that you have. And military can make you a little cynical or sometimes, or maybe on the edge, or always on watching, kind of vigilant.
Mm-hmm.
And but it definitely gives you a great appreciation for the country, um, for your freedoms, and you want so many more people to actually serve, because it brings. I don't think there's many people that could say their life wasn't, and I know some may have some tragic situations, some huge loss, but they can say their life wasn't enhanced by serving in the military. Sometimes you like lose a little part of your life, but you gain a greater love and appreciation for this nation, the opportunities you have, um, you know, to, and it's a privilege to serve in the greatest fighting force in the world, and that's what the U.S. military is.
Awesome. How did your military service? Is there anything about your personality that you owe to the military, being in the military service?
Well, I wish I could say like some people that it made me mature and grew me up, but it didn't. I don't think
Well,
it.
do you think it played a part in, like, I don't know, because you were kind of carousing and so
Mhm.
on, and but at some point you came out of that. Do you think your military service played a part of that, or any
So
other part of your
so
life?
I honestly I think what probably played a part of getting me on track, and
Mm-hmm.
well, ultimately it was Jesus Christ. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
needed to get on track, because when we're living life without Jesus Christ as the focus of our life can get unbalanced. And that could look like many things for many people. It might look like addiction for one person. It might look like over enthusiasm for a career for another person, or
Mm-hmm.
self. It could look like many things, but it's out of balance. And I think Sergeant Barton, him praying for me, and others in the military, there were followers of Christ that were praying for the soldiers.
Yeah.
I think that was very impactful, and I think after trying the military and realizing, joining the military and taking myself with me,
Mm.
that there wasn't a system or career or anything that was going to get me on track. It was only Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm. And you got that introduction with that sergeant.
Right. It played a part. It played a part and helped me find something that I was searching for, see a
Mm.
need.
And so, any other advice that you would give to someone who was joining the military? I know you had those words before. Any other things that you could think of that might help somebody who was thinking about a career in the military?
I think they should seriously consider it. I think their life will be enhanced by it. They don't have to make a career out of it, but I think just paying back and giving to this nation will make you much more appreciative of this nation. I think it'll help you realize some of your strengths, some of your weaknesses. It's a chance to give yourself an honest assessment of yourself and what you
Mm.
want to do. But I think military service is a great way to start a career. If you don't have to end it there, but just to start it, because you got help with money for college,
Mm-hmm.
so many things.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's a great start. I think it's an overlooked opportunity.
Well, Kim, I'm so grateful that you were able to come over and we got to have this chance to talk. I want to thank you for your service. I really appreciate your yes on the table, not just for this country, but for freedom.
Right.
Thanks, Kim.
And look, and thank you, because this is something that's much needed, especially to Vietnam era veterans that never got recognition, never got an opportunity to tell their story,
Mm-hmm.
never thought anyone really wanted to hear their story. So this is a great opportunity to bring healing and just recognition. And there's something about veterans. Once you know a person, a veteran, it's like you're you're attracted to them, and it's like you got that common bond right there from just serving your country.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think out of this nation, if you're actively serving, you're in the 1 percentile.
Mm-hmm.
Out of the population of this nation, I think it's less than 70% that are actually veterans.
Mm.
So it's a small group that has given a lot.
All gave some gave all. And we are grateful. We're grateful to our veterans. We're grateful for the spirit of self-sacrifice, and absolutely grateful to live in the best country in the world where people matter. And you're a big part of that. So thank you so much, Kim.
You're welcome. Amen.
Thanks again for tuning into the Voices of Vets podcast today. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our episodes of real vets and their stories. And don't forget to visit our website, voicesofvets.us, where you can check out the photo gallery and more.